It's 2 a.m., and the storm outside feels like it's tearing the world apart. I'm stuck in a creaky, rundown hotel on the edge of nowhere, the kind you only book when you're desperate. Room 13 wasn't my first choice, or any choice really. But when the front desk clerk handed me the key, his face went pale. He mumbled something about it being the last available room, then practically threw the key at me like it was cursed. I thought he was just being weird, but the moment I stepped into room 13, something felt wrong. Let me tell you what happened that night, and why I'll never stay in a hotel again. This hotel was ancient, probably standing since the early 1900s, with peeling wallpaper, flickering lights, and a smell like wet wood and regret. I was traveling for work, exhausted, and all I cared about was finding a bed and passing out. The room itself was nothing special. Faded curtains, an old TV that buzzed even when it was off, and a stiff mattress. But something about the air was heavy, like the walls were holding their breath. I tried to brush it off as my imagination. I mean, I'd had a long day and my mind was probably playing tricks on me. But then I noticed something strange. The mirror on the wall across from the bed wasn't reflecting right. It showed the room, sure, but there was this smudge in the corner. Almost like a shadow that didn't belong to anything. I figured it was just dirt or a trick of the light, so I turned on the lamp by the bed. Big mistake. As soon as the light flickered to life, the shadow in the mirror moved. Not fast, like some horror movie jump scare, but slow, deliberate. I froze, staring at it, waiting for my eyes to adjust or for my brain to tell me it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. The storm outside was getting worse, and the sound of rain pounding on the windows was so loud it felt like the building might collapse. That's when I heard the knock. It wasn't at the door. It was coming from inside the room. It was soft at first, like someone tapping on wood. I glanced around, trying to figure out where it was coming from, but the room looked empty. The knock came again, louder this time, and I swear it came from the closet. Now, every rational part of me said to leave it alone, pretend it didn't happen, and go to sleep. But there's something about hearing a noise in an empty room that makes it impossible to ignore. I walked over to the closet, each step feeling heavier than the last, and slowly pulled the door open. Nothing. Just an empty closet with a couple of old hangers. Relieved, I shut the door and turned back toward the bed. That's when I saw her. She was standing in front of the mirror, her back to me. Long, dark hair matted like she'd just climbed out of a lake, and a pale, tattered dress that looked like it had been white once, decades ago. I wanted to scream, but my throat felt like it had closed up. She didn't move, didn't make a sound, but I could feel her staring at me through the mirror, even though her face wasn't visible. Then she turned. Her eyes were black, not like dark brown, but pitch black, like staring into two endless voids. Her mouth moved, but no words came out, just this low, guttural whisper that made my skin crawl. "Why are you here?" I don't remember running, but somehow I ended up in the hallway, panting and shaking like I'd just escaped a nightmare. The hallway was empty, silent except for the distant rumble of thunder. I sprinted to the front desk, desperate to get out of there. The clerk was gone. The whole lobby was empty, like everyone had vanished into thin air. That's when I noticed the key to room 13 was still in my hand. I threw it on the counter and bolted for the door, not caring about the rain or the storm outside. The next morning I went back, not because I wanted to, but because I needed answers. The hotel looked different in daylight, still old and creepy, but not as menacing. I asked the new clerk about room 13, and she gave me this strange look, like I'd just said something offensive. "We don't have a room 13, she said. I laughed nervously, thinking she was messing with me, but she wasn't. She showed me the floor plan, and sure enough, there was no room 13. It skipped from 12 to 14. But I know what I saw. That night still haunts me. I don't know who or what that woman was, but I'll never forget her eyes. They weren't just looking at me. It felt like they were looking through me, into every fear I'd ever had. And sometimes when I'm alone, I still hear that knock. If you've ever had a strange experience in a hotel or seen something you can't explain, share it in the comments. Or better yet, watch my next story. It might make you think twice before checking into your next room.